There are things only someone who lives behind the wheel of a truck will ever understand. It's not just the loneliness or the hum of the engine or the constant lack of sleep. It's something else, something quieter, deeper. Sometimes the road talks to you, and sometimes it answers with silence. The kind of silence that presses on your chest like two heavy hands. I've been a trucker for over 20 years. I've crossed this country from coast to coast. I've watched the sun rise over the mountains and the full moon reflect off wet asphalt. But I've also seen things I can't explain. And the story I'm about to tell you didn't come from a truck stop tale. I lived it, and it stuck in my head like headlights in the rear view, always there, even when they should have disappeared long ago. It was a cold night. I'd picked up a load on the coast and was heading inland. The highway was empty, one of those endless straight stretches where time seems to slip through your fingers. I turned the radio on, played some old country tunes, and let my mind drift. Around 3 in the morning, something shifted in the air. A slow chill crawled up the back of my neck. I glanced around. Nothing. No lights. No movement. Just the steady sound of tires chewing pavement and the engine whispering low. I eased off the gas. Something wasn't right. Couldn't see it, but I felt it. That gut feeling every trucker knows. When the road starts breathing different. And then I saw it. Standing on the shoulder. A figure. Back turned. Motionless. Completely still. I slammed the brakes. Heart pounding. Maybe someone needed help. I opened the door. Stepped down slowly. My boots hit the gravel with a crunch that sounded too loud. I kept my eyes on the figure. It didn't move. Just stood there, facing the trees. Not a flinch. Not a twitch. I took a few steps forward and called out. "Hey, you all right?" No answer. Not even a shrug. I felt my pulse rise in my throat. I walked closer, my flashlight in hand, the beam shaking slightly. When I got about 10 feet away, I stopped. There was something wrong. The figure was wearing a jacket, old, dirty, and torn. But the way it stood, it looked stiff, unnatural, like it had been planted there. I called again, louder this time. "Do you need help?" Still nothing. I circled a little to the side, trying to see the face. But as I moved, the figure turned slightly, not the head. The whole body, slow, mechanical. It didn't look at me. It looked past me, toward my truck. And then, I swear on everything I've got, it smiled. Just barely. A twitch of the lips, crooked and cold. I stepped back, suddenly gripped by something I can only describe as dread. Not fear. Dread. Like my body already knew something my mind hadn't caught up with yet. I turned to look at the truck. Nothing. Just the blinking hazard lights, engine humming soft. I turned back to the figure. But it was gone. Vanished. No sound. No footprints. Just mist on the shoulder where it had been standing. I froze. Scanned the trees. My light cut through the darkness but showed nothing. My mouth was dry, heart hammering in my chest. And then, I heard it. A whisper. Right behind me. Not a word. Just the sound of breath, inches from my ear. I turned so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight. Nothing there. Just empty road and the soft rustling of leaves far beyond the ditch. I backed up, step by step, eyes darting, scanning everything. I climbed back into the truck without looking away from the darkness outside. Locked the doors. Shifted into gear with shaking hands. And drove. Didn't stop. Didn't check my mirrors. Drove straight through the night until the sun cracked the horizon and lit up the cab like a warm blanket. Only then did I let myself breathe again. People say the road plays tricks on you when you're tired. Maybe. But that night, I wasn't tired. I was alert, focused, sober. Whatever that was, it wasn't a dream. It was real. And the worst part? I've driven that same stretch of road a dozen times since then. And every time, just for a second, I see a figure in the distance, watching, waiting. But I never stop again. I wasn't the kind of guy who got scared easy. I've hauled loads through storms, dodged bandits on dirt roads, even once drove with a busted axle for 6 hours straight. But nothing messed with my head like what happened that night on Route 39. I'd been hired for a rush delivery. Industrial parts. Heavy load. The kind you don't want to stop with unless you have to. The road was rough, narrow, and twisted through long stretches of empty forest. Not a town for miles. I left the last bit of civilization around 10 p.m. and entered a long black tunnel of trees and silence. No signal. No lights. No other vehicles. Just me, the truck, and the woods pressing in on both sides. About an hour in, I saw a sign nailed to a crooked post on the side of the road. White letters, faded and chipped. It read, "No stopping after dark." I laughed. Thought it was just some local superstition. The kind of thing rednecks put up to spook outsiders. But I won't lie. Something about the way the letters looked. Rushed, uneven, almost scratched in. It stayed in my head longer than it should have. I kept going. But then, I saw her. A woman. In the middle of the road. Long hair. Pale dress. Barefoot. I slammed the brakes so hard the tires screamed. The rig swerved slightly but held. My heart pounded in my ears. When the truck stopped, she was gone. Just vanished. I opened the door and stepped down. My flashlight barely cut through the dark. I called out, "Miss? Are you okay?" Nothing. The trees didn't even move. No wind. No animals. Just silence thick enough to choke on. Then I heard something behind the truck. Footsteps. Slow. Crunching gravel. I ran back and pointed the flashlight toward the trailer. Nothing. But on the back door, I swear to you, there were wet handprints. Small. As if someone had placed their palms flat against the metal and dragged them downward. But I hadn't stopped for more than a few seconds. And I was sure no one touched that truck. I got in. Locked everything. Drove fast. Eyes darting from the road to the mirrors to the woods. And then, the worst moment of my life. I glanced in the rearview. She was inside the cab. Sitting in the sleeper behind me. Not moving. Just there. I screamed. Swerved. Nearly lost control. When I looked again, gone. But something had changed. The cab was cold. Freezing cold. My breath fogged the air like I was in a freezer. The windshield started to frost over from the inside. Couldn't even see. I had to roll the window down just to stay on the road. No matter how far I drove, the cold didn't leave. It stayed with me until dawn. And then, just like that, it was over. Sunlight hit the dashboard. The air warmed. My breath stopped fogging. I pulled over at the first gas station I found. Shaking like hell, hands numb. The guy at the counter looked at me and said, "You came through Route 39, didn't you?" I nodded, barely able to answer. He just sighed and said, "You're lucky she didn't stay with you." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know. But as I sat in that parking lot, engine off, hands trembling on the steering wheel, I noticed something else. My back seat, the blanket I always kept folded, was messed up, twisted, crumpled, like someone had been lying there, or something. I never let anyone in that cab. It's my space, my rule. And yet something or someone had been back there that night. I felt it. I knew it. For weeks after, every time I climbed into the truck, I checked the sleeper first. With a flashlight. With a cross once, I'm not gonna lie. I even started sleeping in motels when I could, leaving the cab locked from the outside. People laughed when I told them, said I was just tired, losing it. But I wasn't tired. I wasn't dreaming. Because even now, sometimes when I drive alone at night, I feel the same cold creeping in. I look in the rear view and see nothing. But I feel it. Like something's watching me from the dark corner behind the seats. Breathing shallow. Waiting for the right moment. And every time I pass Route 39 again, I don't look at the shoulder. I keep my eyes straight, my hands tight on the wheel. And I whisper, under my breath, "Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop." Because I know what happens if I do. And I don't think I'd be as lucky next time. Some stories never make it to the rest stops. They're not the kind you tell while drinking coffee with the other drivers, bragging about mileage and engine power. No, this one stayed with me, quiet, numb, like a splinter buried too deep to pull out. It happened in the Northeast, near a stretch of mountain road known for sharp curves and sudden fog. Locals call it the Blind Pass. I'd heard rumors. Trucks disappearing, drivers found days later, walking aimlessly, unable to speak. I never believed it, until I had no choice but to drive through it. My GPS rerouted me after a landslide blocked the main highway. It was either wait 24 hours or take the pass. Against my better judgment, I chose the shortcut. It was late. The sky was heavy with low clouds, and the fog crept in before I even hit the first incline. Within minutes, I couldn't see more than 5 feet ahead. I slowed to a crawl, hazard lights flashing, radio off. That silence again. The kind that presses on your ears. I leaned forward, eyes wide, trying to spot the lines on the road. That's when I saw the man. He was walking in the middle of the lane. Slowly, head down. No reflective vest. No flashlight. Just a flannel shirt soaked in mist and dark jeans. I hit the horn. No reaction. I swerved just enough to avoid hitting him. Passed with inches to spare. Checked my mirror. He was gone. Gone. Not walking. Not on the side. Not behind. Nowhere. I told myself it was the fog. My tired mind. Maybe he stepped into the trees. I pushed on. But then, I smelled something. Burnt oil. Wet dirt. And something else. Something metallic. Like rust mixed with old blood. It was strong. Overwhelming. I rolled the windows down. Still there. Then the headlights flickered. Once. Twice. Total darkness. I slammed the brakes. Silence. I turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Dead. I grabbed my flashlight. Climbed out. Checked the engine. No sign of damage. But the air felt wrong. Like I'd stepped into a place where time didn't move. No sound. No wind. Not even insects. That's when I heard the knock. From inside the trailer. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Another knock. This time louder. I backed away. The locks were sealed. No reason anyone would be inside. Unless I climbed back in the cab and locked the doors. Gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The knocks came again. But now, from the roof. Slow. Dragging. Something was walking across the top of my truck. Step. Scrape. Step. Scrape. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared ahead into the fog. Then it stopped. Silence. I waited. 1 minute. 5. 10. Suddenly, the engine roared to life on its own. Headlights lit. The radio blasted static. The cab filled with cold air. And in the mirror right behind me, a face. White. Hollow. Wide black eyes. It leaned close. And whispered something I'll never forget. It said, "You saw me. Now I see you." I blacked out. When I came to, it was daylight. The truck was parked on the side of the road. Engine off. Door shut. No damage. No proof. Nothing. Just one thing. On the windshield, drawn in the fog, was a single word. Run. And I've been running ever since. Just one thing. On the windshield, drawn in the fog, was a single word. Run. And I've been running ever since. I tried to tell someone once. Another driver. A guy I trusted. He laughed at first. Said I probably dozed off. But then I showed him the dash cam. Just static. Hours of static. No video, no sound. And he went pale. Didn't say another word. Never brought it up again. A few months later, he took the same route. He never made it to his delivery. The truck was found 2 days later. Empty. Doors locked from the inside. Trailer untouched. Engine clean. But he was gone. No trace. No signs of a struggle. No body. Just his boots. Sitting perfectly aligned by the driver's door. Facing the woods. Since then, I don't drive alone at night. Not if I can help it. And if I see fog on the highway, I stop. I wait. I don't care about deadlines or angry dispatchers. I'd rather lose a job than lose myself out there. Because once the road sees you, really sees you, it doesn't forget. It watches. It waits. And if you're not careful, one night, it might call you back. And next time, you might not come back at all. If you've listened this far, maybe you're a driver too. Maybe you've felt it, that weight pressing down when the road is too quiet. That sudden chill when you're miles from the nearest town. That whisper in the wind that sounds too much like your name. I used to think it was just stress, fatigue, imagination, but not anymore, because I've seen things, heard things, felt things, and the worst part? I know I'm not the only one. We just don't talk about it. We joke at the pumps, tell funny stories at the diners, act like the highway's just asphalt and white lines. But out there, somewhere between the cracks in the concrete, something watches, something old, something that doesn't care if you believe in it or not. All 3 stories I told you, they're real. I didn't make them up. I didn't dream them. I survived them. And I'm not proud of that. Because every time I see someone new behind the wheel, someone green, smiling, thinking this job is just freedom and miles, I wonder how long they've got before it shows up, before the silence speaks, before something cold and wrong crawls into the cab and never leaves. You think you're safe in your truck. Big engine, bright lights, doors locked. But you're not, because some things don't need a key to get in. Sometimes you bring them with you, without knowing. A glance in the mirror, a stop in the wrong place, a thought too loud in the middle of the night. And once they hear you, they don't forget. They ride with you, sleep behind the seats, whisper to you while you drive. And when the fog rolls in, and your radio starts to hiss, and the road ahead turns darker than it should, don't ignore it. Don't pretend it's nothing, because that's when it's closest. And if you ever feel like someone's sitting right behind you, don't look, just drive. And if you ever feel like someone's sitting right behind you, don't look, just drive. Because the second you acknowledge it, the second you let it know you're aware, that's when it starts to follow you for real. I learned that the hard way. One night I looked. I shouldn't have. It was a rest stop on the edge of nowhere. I parked to sleep. Just a couple hours. Dead of night, windows cracked for air. That heavy quiet again. The one that makes you feel like the world stopped breathing. I felt something shift behind me. The weight of the cab changed, like someone had climbed in. And I looked. What I saw, I don't even have words. The human mind wasn't made to describe certain things. It wasn't a face. It wasn't a shadow. It was just presence. Hunger. Cold. A void in the shape of a passenger. I didn't scream. Couldn't. I blinked. And it was gone. But I knew. I'd made a mistake. Because ever since that night, I haven't driven alone. Not really. No matter how many miles I cover. No matter the route. No matter the time of day. Something rides with me. Sometimes I hear it breathing. Sometimes I see it just for a second in reflections. In the chrome. In the mirrors. Always there. Always closer than it should be. You don't forget that kind of presence. You learn to live with it. You learn to never speak about it. And above all, you never stop moving. Because if you stop, it does too. And if it stops long enough, if it ever settles in, if it ever decides you're ready, you won't be telling stories anymore. You'll be part of one. So to anyone out there who thinks this job is just about freedom, windows down, diesel in your blood, I hope you're right. I hope the road is good to you. I hope you never take a wrong turn. Never stop where you shouldn't. Never answer when something knocks once, twice, 3 times on your trailer door. And if one day you wake up parked on the side of the road, with no memory of how you got there, don't ask questions. Just start the engine and drive before it gets back in.